Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning. I'm Katie Halper.
And I'm Aaron Maté. Good Monday morning, everybody.
Good Monday morning.
If you were hoping for a new special counsel, because what America needs is special counsels.
Yeah.
This is your week. You're in luck because we got a new special counsel for you, everybody.
And I know everyone was spending like their time being like, when are we going to get a new special counsel? When will our government respond to our needs and our media cover the important stories? And both things are happening. So you're so in luck. And of course, this, by the way, if you don't know, in case you're a newcomer, this is Monday morning when we react to the Sunday morning news shows that we watch so that you don't have to.
And so many fun clips to react to this week. Before we get started, a reminder to go to usefulidiots.substack.com or usefulidiots.locals.com to subscribe and get bonus content. And I guess with that, let's go to the Chuckster.
Speaking of bonus, we're on borrowed time with the Chuckster because he's retiring this fall. So make sure you really appreciate him while we still have him.
And a good Sunday morning. In case you needed another sign that the 2024 campaign will be shaped by legal dramas in courtrooms in Washington, Delaware, Miami, New York, and Atlanta, rather than door-to-door in the state of Iowa, we got a reminder again on Friday. Attorney General...
Isn't that weird how that's like the choice? Either the election, which is done to decide like the direction of the country and who leads it, the choice is between having it decided in legal dramas in courtrooms or door-to-door in the state of Iowa.
Right.
Is there something in between, like where it's not just about like the primary frenzy or courtroom drama, but how about actual issues that impact people's lives, especially, their well-being, their material well-being? It's not really on the radar of the Chuckster these days.
No. Well said.
Merrick Garland announced that Trump appointee and U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who's been investigating Hunter Biden for alleged tax and gun crimes for 5 years now, had now requested special counsel status, and he's going to get it after a plea deal collapsed in court a few weeks ago when a federal judge balked at granting Hunter Biden expansive immunity.
The appointment of Mr. Weiss reinforces for the American people the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters.
Now, President Biden's son could face a trial at a time when Democrats were hoping to keep the campaign's focus on Donald Trump's legal problems. Now, the two cases, they're hardly comparable. Donald Trump is now under federal indictment for attempting to overturn the 2020 election and for mishandling classified documents that included a U.S. military plan of attack on Iran. President Biden has not been charged with any wrongdoing, and at least so far, Hunter Biden's alleged crimes are 2 years of not paying taxes, which his attorneys say he has since paid, and lying about his drug use at the time of a gun purchase. And clearly, Hunter Biden is not a candidate for president. But President Biden...
No, but Hunter Biden did get a very lucrative board seat in Ukraine, which happened to be the country where his father had the most sway of anybody, right after his father's administration backed a coup. And it's now been alleged by FBI informants that the Bidens benefited from millions of dollars in payments, because one of the things that Hunter Biden's client Burisma asked him to do, one of the quote deliverables that they asked for, was to quash an investigation into their company, into Burisma. And Biden, Vice President Biden, not long after that, fired the prosecutor who was heading that case. So that deliverable was delivered. So yes, no one's been indicted for that yet, but to say that Biden's not connected at all to Hunter Biden because Hunter Biden's not running for president is very disingenuous, because this is out there, and especially given that we're fighting a proxy war over Ukraine right now, it's, I think, especially relevant to mention, which is the signature Biden policy. He's presided over a disastrous proxy war in Ukraine. I think that's like the main thing on his legacy right now, given that it threatens world peace and has been so destructive. So to brush Hunter's issues aside and say they're not related to Biden is, I think Chuck is missing that.
Well, yeah, but I would agree. They don't even bring that up at all. They're never talking about that. And the other thing is that if this were Trump's family and Trump's kids did something like this, right? Like ignoring the Ukraine thing, the Burisma thing, just the drug stuff, the gun stuff, the media would be all over it, and they would not be pointing out that Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. is not running for president.
Yeah, sure. And, and that was the thing. Jared Kushner was totally corrupt. And that was underscored as he was leaving office, or after he left office, after the Trump administration, he got a huge deal with Saudi Arabia, got a lot of money from a entity there. And that was a big deal. That was a legit example of corruption. And so Hunter Biden is basically doing the same thing. And, or for example, when Donald Trump Jr. had that meeting with some Russians in Trump Tower, and he said, if that's what you say it is, I love it, when he was told us some dirt on Hillary Clinton. That was a major issue. That was wall-to-wall coverage. That to some people was the proof of a conspiracy between Trump and Russia. That was a smoking gun. Right.
And no one was like, well, that's his son-in-law. That's not Trump.
That's his son. Exactly. Yeah, no, that's his son. And if Trump and Trump is just a good father who's a supporting of his kids, even if they make a mistake, he just loves his kids so much, which is the line now we're getting with Joe and Hunter.
Exactly. Right. That's right. Yeah.
A father's love.
Yeah. Father's love. Yeah.
Biden's handling of the case has raised questions at a time when voters already have doubts about his age and political standing. Biden brought his son to a state dinner just 2 days after the plea deal that has since collapsed was announced. And he has repeatedly defended him, denying wrongdoing altogether, even though Hunter Biden himself has pled guilty.
I'm confident. First of all, my son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him.
Thank you. Please, come on, thank you. Did you encourage him to take a plea deal, Mr. President?
In total, there are now 3 special counsels actively at work involved in this presidential campaign. Jack Smith, named in November to oversee the ongoing criminal investigations into Trump's handling of classified documents and his...
1 second. I mean, that's really nice of him to believe in his son, trust his son, think he did nothing wrong. The only problem is, as the Chuckster pointed out, someone would disagree with that, and that someone's name is Hunter Biden.
That's right.
Who's pleading, who's actually admitting he did something wrong.
Yeah. Also, how excited is Chuck that we have 3 special counsels right now?
Amazing.
I mean, when Robert Mueller was on the case, that was enough. People were so excited. It was Mueller mania. It was Mueller time. Now we have 3 special counsels, not 1, not 2, but 3. And what's wonderful about this for corporate TV is it allows them not to talk about actual material issues, because everything can be funneled through this endless courtroom drama that impacts every single candidate and now their families. And what's funny is Trump, for all of his legal troubles, he has less special counsels now than the Bidens do, because Trump has Jack Smith, that man there, looking into his classified documents mishandling and also his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. But the Bidens have 2 special counsels, because they have one for Joe's classified documents issues and also one for Hunter Biden. So actually, the Bidens are leading the special counsel contest right now.
Right. Good job.
Attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Robert Hur, he was named in January to investigate the handling of classified documents found at President Biden's former office and his home. And now, of course, David Weiss. The decision to delay the appointment of Weiss as a special counsel is also a bit hard to understand. Even the language Garland used announcing his appointment Friday, emphasizing independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters, are almost the exact same phrases that he used when appointing Jack Smith 9 months ago to oversee the Trump cases. The legal calendar will continue to overshadow this political calendar.
That's some good journalism there from Chuck. A politician used the same language twice. He got him.
Yeah, you got him. Nailed him.
Calendar. Trump's lawyers were actually in court on Friday, hashing out the details of what he is allowed to say publicly about the January 6th case in an effort to protect witnesses and the sensitive documents he's about to receive from the Justice Department in discovery. And prosecutors in Georgia, where Trump is likely to be indicted a 4th time.
You know, I'm feeling so grateful for these documents. I like that, the documents he's about to receive. Isn't that part of grace? We thank you, dear Lord, for the documents we are about to receive.
Because that also is Americans' top priority, is documents.
Right. Yeah.
And making sure making sure that if we plan to attack Iran and start a world war, that we don't know about it. We don't want to know. We just want that in the hands of our trusted leaders like Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The public has no right to know about that. And if we dare find out, let's prosecute whoever was responsible for getting those documents out, because the sanctity of documents cannot be challenged.
Exactly.
In the last year have indicated they plan to present their case to a grand jury later this week. Still, Donald Trump's rivals are going through the motions of a traditional political campaign, even as he leads them nationally by more than 30 points, and the legal dramas just blot out the sun. And they're trying to catch Trump in Iowa, where he has a dominant lead despite visiting the state just 6 times since announcing his campaign in November. This weekend, they posed with the famous butter cow and food on a stick at the Iowa State Fair. And despite going
I've never heard of that butter cow. Am I ignorant? Is that butter cow supposed
Aaron,
to be famous?
it's famous.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the butter cow in Iowa?
I mean, I heard about it right now.
Okay. Here we are. We're supposed to be informed political
Pundits,
analysts. We've never heard of the butter cow.
No.
I am humbled. This was a humbling moment for me. Yes.
Yeah.
The Chuckster, once again, showing us the way, and yet he's leaving us so soon.
It's so horrible. It makes it that much more painful. This is a bittersweet stream, guys. Whenever we see Chuck, it's bittersweet.
If you're in the chat, let us know if you've heard of the butter cow. Okay.
The butter cow, yeah.
You have. Okay. All right.
Yeah, let us know.
Well, humbling. I'm the humbled cow right now. That's who I am.
through the motions of campaigning against him, Trump's rivals have passed up numerous opportunities to criticize him for his, at current count, 78 felony counts. But they jumped at a chance to comment on Hunter Biden.
It just seems to me that they're going to find a way to give him some type of soft glove treatment. And I don't understand why you would appoint this guy to be the special counsel.
Why did it take 2 years to do this? Why did they say Hunter Biden and not the Biden family? You know, why did this suddenly come up when there was all of a sudden the Biden pay-to-play conversation? I don't trust it, but the American people don't trust the Department of Justice.
Well, man, oh man, this hole is getting deeper and deeper. Just case after case after case. It's like we've said before, this is like a episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show. Like, you get a case, you get a case, you get a case.
Look under your seat.
Yeah, so many cases.
Case mania.
Case mania. Yes. Okay. Well, keeping the excitement going, let's go to one of the most boring pundits on cable news. His name is Chuck Rosenberg. And he is a former senior FBI official. Big talking head during Russiagate, where he took part in the effort to hype up the Mueller probe until it collapsed. Anyway, he just shrugged that off and is on to the next series of cases. And now he's back to tell us his analysis about this case involving Hunter Biden.
Yes, please enjoy this hot Chuck on Chuck live action.
Chuck on Chuck
Motivation
action.
here for the Attorney General is, so then the motivation here for the Attorney General is simply to, is he worried that the cases against Trump were going to look biased if he didn't do this?
Well, there seemed to be a drumbeat to appoint a special counsel to investigate at least Hunter Biden, if not the Biden family. Mr. Weiss, the special counsel, now has the authority to take the investigation wherever he thinks it ought to go. There's a problem, I think, generally with the special counsel regulations. And there's another problem that worries me even more. It's this. I don't think Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump, for that matter, should be treated any better or any worse than any other person under investigation.
Hot take, guys. Hot take.
Really hot take.
Yeah. Do not treat these powerful, rich men in any way that's different from the way other people are treated. Now that he said that, that of course means that that's the reality.
Both deserve to be treated fairly. Whatever you may think of them, they deserve to be treated fairly. Special counsels, though, bring an intense focus on just one or two people, and that can be corrosive.
And it's almost, so then what you're saying is almost as unfair.
I mean, for example, back when the Mueller probe happened into whether or not the president was a Russian asset, the special counsel, Mueller, knew from the start, pretty much from the start, that they had nothing on collusion. And rather than just announcing that and shutting down the probe, because there were so many partisans on his team, including Andrew Weissman, who's now an analyst on MSNBC, and also because they were trying to make the FBI look credible, because Robert Mueller was the former director of the FBI, and it worked with so many of the people who launched the Russia probe to begin with, including Jim Comey. Mueller kept it going for an extra, whatever it was, 2 years, just to make it look credible, and then even pivoted to trying to nail Trump on obstruction because they had nothing on collusion. So that's a case I think that Chuck Rosenberg could point to and saying that, yes, there's a problem with these special counsels, but he can't do that because special counsel Mueller's probe was like MSNBC's bread and butter. They went all in.
Right.
Anyway, you know what? This clip is probably too boring to continue, so we can go on to the next one.
It was MSNBC's bread and butter cow.
Okay. Jamie Raskin is a member of Congress, Democratic. He's a Democrat from Maryland, and he's been very vocal in defending the Bidens and in blaming Russia for everything having to do with the Bidens. But now he's going to change his tune a little bit now that we have a special counsel, because in the Democratic Party, if there's one lesson we've learned from the Mueller probe, is we worship special counsels, and I guess this one's no different.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about some of the stuff that the Republicans have been highlighting regarding Hunter Biden. We've seen we saw Joe Biden at one point say that Hunter Biden had no dealings, got no money from China. We now see from Hunter's own words that that's not true. Does any of this raise concerns for you? The money from Ukraine, the money from China, the money from Russia. Does any of this? Well, look, whether or not it's criminal, whether or not it warrants special counsel status, are you concerned about this stuff?
Here's what I'm concerned about. During the Trump administration, we saw the development of a completely new public philosophy, which is that government is not an instrument of the common good and the public interest. Government is an instrument for private self-enrichment, for the guy who gets in, for his family, for his private businesses. And that's a model.
You hear this? Trump is the pioneer of a previously unheard of situation where the person in office abuses their power for their own personal enrichment. Yeah. Before that, we were a harmonious democracy.
A true democracy, representative democracy, yeah.
Just with some people, some guys in the Oval Office trying to help the common good, doing their best to help the people. And then Trump came in and ruined it and started profiteering.
Yeah, Trump introduced corruption into the office of the president.
Yeah.
It was a
Barack Obama,
thing.
for example, Barack Obama, who's hanging out with billionaires all the time, who let Citibank basically choose his cabinet, who got a huge multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix to be a producer, because we all know Barack Obama is a genius film producer.
Right.
Not corrupt, just for the common good. Same with the Clintons and all the money that they have earned, becoming very, very wealthy after the presidency, all for the common good. And same with, the Bush family, obviously. The Bush family, nothing to do there with profiteering. And Dick Cheney being on Halliburton.
Yeah, that was just for that was out of the kindness of his own heart, what Dick Cheney did.
Yes.
The kindness of his own pig heart.
But Trump came along and just spoiled it for everybody.
And introduced self-interest and corruption into our previously pure political system.
Yeah. And Biden, thankfully, when he came back, he did his best to reintroduce integrity by, for example, having a son who was appointed to a lucrative energy board seat in Ukraine, where Biden happened to be the most influential politician.
Right.
Totally ethical and all for the common good. And now these Republicans are trying to spoil Biden's efforts to clean up the White House.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disgusting. But at least, Hunter Biden had an extensive career in energy and spoke Ukrainian, Russian. Was a real Sovietologist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in case anybody wants to clip this and try to accuse us of excusing Trump, of course Trump was massively corrupt. Of course, Jared Kushner above all other family members, I think, profited the most, especially with his dealings with Saudi Arabia. The point is, though, Trump didn't pioneer profiteering.
Right.
And Raskin is pretending as if Trump was some sort of
aberration.
It was an aberration.
Right. Trailblazer. Yeah.
Okay. Back to Jamie.
That we're seeing all over the world.
But you don't approve of that model, obviously.
I do not.
You denounced that model.
That's what Putin is doing.
Donald Trump. Yeah.
That.
Wait a second. Thank you, John. Thank you for these hardball questions from Jonathan Carl. You don't approve of that system of self-enrichment and corruption, do you?
No.
Thanks for that question. I feel so enlightened, and I feel like we really do have an adversarial and responsible media with questions like that really make you think, that really challenge the guest. I think Jamie Raskin that was like totally out of left field for Jamie Raskin.
Mm-hmm.
And he really had to struggle to figure out the answer.
And of course, Jamie has to immediately invoke Putin because he's required, he's obligated, I think, cognitively to mention Putin every 15 seconds.
Right.
Because Putin's responsible for every single American problem ever.
Right.
So, yes, that's what Putin does. Yeah. We don't do that here.
Right.
That kind of corruption is only Putin and Trump. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
If you were to put Putin and Trump on an island together for the rest of their lives, world corruption would be solved.
That's true.
You know, it's unfortunate that
that they're not on an island together.
Yeah, really.
I can't
if only the U.S. believed in extraordinary rendition, you know, they could make that happen and solve corruption for everyone. Unfortunately, we oppose extraordinary rendition. We don't do that. We don't kidnap people and cage them on islands together like Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
Otherwise, we could solve corruption.
Yeah.
That's what Warban is doing. That's what Marcos is doing. That's what El Sisi is doing. That's what
it's been going on since the dawn of mankind.
Well, but it's.
Oh, wait a second. Jonathan Carl is really off message there. He just totally contradicted what Jamie Raskin said. He suggested that corruption and self-enrichment and self-interest committed by the powerful is a timeless problem, has been happening since the dawn of time.
Now, how long has Trump been alive for? Because what if Trump's been alive since the dawn of mankind? Maybe that still fits with Raskin's thesis here.
Theory, yeah. Let's see how he reacts to this, which actually is a hardball.
New for America that somebody would get in and basically just say, everything is corrupt and I'm just as corrupt as the next guy and I'm going to take money, as Trump did, from China, from South.
So it's new. It's happened since the beginning of time, since the dawn of what he say? Since the dawn,
the dawn of mankind,
but not America. Right, that's the difference. Right,
America was exempt.
Right, America was exempt. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Saudi Arabia from the United Arab Emirates. I mean, look, his son-in-law Jared Kushner pocketed a cool $2 billion
from Saudi Arabia.
And he had a corporation that created
the Saudi portfolio in the White House. But what about Hunter?
So I am concerned about it, and I'm concerned not just about public officials like Donald Trump and Jared Kushner who do it, but even family members who water ski along for the ride. And I have been, begging my colleague, Chairman Comer, for us to do a serious analysis of what the laws should be about money making.
And you would take part in a serious investigation?
Yes, of course we would. And we're going to release a report about all of the foreign government emoluments, millions of dollars we can document that Donald Trump pocketed at the hotels, at the golf courses, through business deals when he was president, and that his family got. But they've not laid a glove on Joe Biden as president. They haven't been able to show any criminal corruption on his part. What they've got is Hunter Biden, and we all seem clear that
what they've got is Hunter Biden, who refers in multiple messages to the big guy who he has to give some of his money to and pay bills for. And who is the big guy? And Hunter was getting his father, Joe, on the phone with his business associates multiple times. That's what Hunter's business partner, Devin Archer, recently testified. And the Democratic line there is that was just to discuss the weather. That was just for pleasantries. There's nothing to see here. Everyone knows exactly what was going on. Hunter Biden was selling his access, and he was influence peddling. That's what was happening. So yes, Joe hasn't been charged for any of that, and he probably never will be charged. But that doesn't mean there's not evidence of corruption. And there might be more evidence of corruption if there weren't this constant effort to undermine any effort to look into it. Such as, for example, when Hunter Biden's laptop appeared before the election, a bunch of former intelligence officials got together to declare that this was a Russian operation, so we shouldn't look into it. And that was successful, at least at that time. So if there weren't the stonewalling like that, then we might even learn more.
But you know what, Aaron, the thing is, to the extent that the corruption that you allege is real on the part of the Bidens or Hunter Biden, you can't blame them because we live in a post-Trump world. So he introduced corruption to America.
It is Trump's fault.
And then he normalized it. So really, Hunter Biden is just, had Biden been president before Trump, obviously there wouldn't have been any of this corruption.
No, of course not.
Right.
And really, because Putin is responsible for Trump, as we all know, really this all comes back to Putin. As Nancy Pelosi said, all roads lead to Putin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to
this
Jamie.
guy was addicted to drugs and did a lot of really unlawful and wrong things. And we have said, let the justice system run its course. They're not saying that about Donald Trump. Anytime Donald Trump actually gets indicted after a grand jury has already determined that there's probably
they attack the prosecutors.
They attack the prosecutors. They attack the judges.
Right.
They attack the system. For them, Donald Trump could never be guilty of anything.
I will keep going. Yeah, you respond to that.
Yeah.
Well, I will give Jamie credit for one thing, which of course he's missing the point, which is that. So I won't give him credit. I'm not going to hand it to him. What he is right about is that Trump took the mask off in some ways, right? Like Trump was more overt about a lot of things that other presidents and politicians do.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he's the guy who said that he's keeping U.S. troops in Syria to take the oil.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You are not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say we're there to spread freedom and democracy and fight terrorism.
Right.
So, and including with corruption too. Yeah, it was obvious that he was also leveraging his White House seat to make money through his hotels and properties. And he totally took the mask off. And that's another reason why he was hated by the establishment, is because you're supposed to be a smooth steward of the corrupt system. You're not supposed to be a walking embodiment of it. Right. And that's why Trump had to go in their eyes.
He had to go, yeah.
Okay, we have another prominent Democrat member of the House, Dan Goldman, who's emerged really as the new Adam Schiff. He is taking the lead in defending the Bidens, accusing critics of being Russian dupes. And here he is talking to Jake Tapper about the Hunter Biden case.
I want to play something that the president said in an interview just a few months ago.
My son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him.
I understand this is a dad talking about his son, but it's also the president of the United States talking about a potential defendant in a case that his Justice Department is prosecuting. Also, he was about to plead guilty to some things that he did wrong. Does the president need to stop publicly saying his son did nothing wrong?
Well, look, I think the president has been very clear that he's going to let the process play out. What we do know is that through all of the investigations in Congress, they're simply investigating a private citizen. Hunter Biden is not running for president, and Joe Biden is running for president, and he is the president, and yet, notwithstanding all of the time, effort, and all of the moving goalposts, there's no evidence connecting President Biden to any of his son's business dealings. And you can sing all you want and make all sorts of accusations, but the fact of the matter is that President Biden, there's been no evidence to show that he's been involved in anything. And so,
okay, again, a quick recap. After Biden's administration helped launch a coup in Ukraine, Hunter Biden was immediately given a lucrative board seat on the energy company Burisma of Ukraine, who had a goal, which is to shut down the investigation of them by Ukraine, by this prosecutor Shokin, and asked Hunter to help with that. And not long after that, Biden got Shokin fired by threatening to withhold loans. And by the way, Biden claimed as if that was a top U.S. policy priority. It wasn't him doing that. But actually, it wasn't. That's not even true. And then you have Devin Archer, Biden's former business partner, testifying that Biden got on the phone call with Hunter Biden's business associates many times to say hi. And yes, even though business was not overtly discussed on those calls with Joe Biden, everyone knows what that means. Like, unless it's very normal for like a business person to like call up their powerful fathers during a business meeting and like say hi, unless that's a normal practice. I mean, I haven't been in too many business meetings, but I've never experienced that before. It doesn't happen too often. It was obvious that was going on. Hunter Biden was showing his access to Biden, and Biden was playing along with that and catering to it. So that's some evidence right there. And then you have also FBI informants, as I mentioned before, testifying that there's that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were basically paid off with bribes. Now, that could be a totally false claim. I don't know. But if an FBI informant had said the same thing during the Trump administration about Trump and Russia, Democrats will be running with that all day and demanding, investigations, as they did. Christopher Steele was a trusted FBI source, and because he wrote up this fictional dossier, the FBI used that to get surveillance warrants. So if the standards were applied equally, that would be happening here. And people like Goldman want to pretend as if there's nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here, right?
Hunter Biden will be treated by the Department of Justice as he should be, but Congress needs to stop investigating a private citizen and stop this fishing expedition to try to link President Biden to Hunter Biden's conduct when there is no evidence to support that.
Well, Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner, told you in closed-door testimony that Hunter would put his father on speakerphone while he was meeting with his business associates, and this happened at least 20 times. And Archer told you that Hunter would use these calls to send signals to his business partners to create the impression that his father was involved and helpful to his business, even if, you're right, as there has been no establishment of any facts that Joe Biden did anything as vice president or president relatedly. But shouldn't President Biden have realized what Hunter was doing here, getting on the phone, talking speakerphone with his business associates? Did he at the very least show a major lapse in judgment and a blind spot with his son and how he handled this?
Look, I think that same witness also made very clear that they never discussed business, that Hunter Biden was trying to promote an illusion of access to his father for his own reasons. That's Hunter Biden, and you can make it whatever judgment you want to make about whether that was appropriate or not. But the president saying hello to people when his son puts them on the phone is not at all doing anything to influence any policy, to use his position for any nefarious purposes. And in fact, what we do know is that the only official action the president took related to Hunter Biden's business interests was detrimental to Hunter Biden's company business interest. It was detrimental to Burisma, as Devin Archer, this new star witness for the Republicans, said, because the Burisma had the corrupt prosecutor general, quote, and I quote the witness, under control, and that was a good thing for that prosecutor general to be in office, and yet Joe Biden urged the Ukrainian government, to fire that prosecutor general. That's the...
Okay, I'm going to accuse Goldman of lying here. And if I'm wrong on this, I'll correct myself. But actually, if you read the transcript of what Devin Archer testified, he said the narrative that Hunter Biden and Blue Star Strategies, which is a consulting firm that was working with Hunter Biden, came up with was that firing Shokin was bad for Burisma. That's the narrative they wanted to promote. But in reality, that is not what happened, because, again, Burisma wanted this prosecutor fired because he was overseeing a case against them. One of the deliverables that Burisma asked Hunter Biden for was getting the case that Shokin was leading shut down. So accordingly, when you fire the prosecutors leading the case, you are furthering that goal. And Hunter Biden, it appears he delivered that because his father got that prosecutor fired. So Goldman here is being very misleading with what Devin Archer actually said.
I never expected it from Golden. Golden boy.
Goldman, who really is he's an heir to a huge fortune, the Levi Strauss fortune. And he's the one who scolded Useful Idiots founding co-host Matt Taibbi when Matt appeared before Congress. was very rude to him. He's been a hardcore Russiagator from the start. And so it's no surprise that he's being put out front to try to defend the Bidens here. But yeah, what he just gave is a totally misleading account. Well, Katie, I think we can move on now to your favorite, one of your favorite issues, which is the only person challenging Joe Biden. There's nobody else.
Yeah.
Nobody
My
else.
fave.
Nothing else to see here. Dean Phillips. Everybody knows who Dean Phillips is.
Everyone knows Dean Phillips. The beloved Dean Phillips. Yep. Let's hear what he has to say. He's, of course, not running, has not entered the race, but he wants someone else to enter the race. Now, there are 2 other people who've entered the race as Democrats. And what I like is that Dean Phillips doesn't even talk about why they're disqualified or not good candidates. He just does not mention them.
It's the weirdest thing where you have Joe Biden being challenged already by RFK Jr., by Marianne Williamson inside the Democratic Party in the primary. So those are his like official opponents. And then you also have Cornel West, who also is competing for progressive votes and for the votes of everybody, with a, class-based message, a message of justice, all the great things that Cornel West stands for. But yet you can't interview them on these shows.
No.
You can't really cover them. So they're trotting out Dean Phillips to basically create this illusion that there's no credible challenger to Biden.
Right.
And Dean Phillips is not even challenging Biden. He just wants someone else to challenge Biden.
And they keep bringing him on to talk about how is he running? When are you entering the race? And he's like, I'm not, guys. And he very humbly says he's well positioned to be president, just not to run for president.
I never use this term. I try to avoid it, but this really is gaslighting. This is gaslighting.
Yeah.
They're gaslighting us, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to it. Let's hear what Dean Phillips has to say.
Yeah.
Come back.
By the way, let me
Biden
just say one thing.
faces
Sorry,
just
and
two
I'll rewind it. Sometimes when people mention, I actually forget it. Sorry, let's go to it. Let's go play. Sorry about that.
Welcome back. President Biden currently faces just 2 minor Democratic challengers. Robert Kennedy Jr. He has a famous name, but he's a lawyer and a vaccine skeptic whose candidacy has been boosted by people like Steve Bannon and financed in part by MAGA donors, believe it or not. Then there's Marianne Williamson. You may remember her from 2020. She's a self-help author and was on the debate stage briefly in 2020. Academic Cornel West is vying for the Green Party nomination and could pull votes from the left. And West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is flirting with an independent run and may leave the party to do that. And now Minnesota.
So this is a historic moment where they're actually acknowledging those other people.
Yes, for 10 seconds. That's
for
what
10
they get.
seconds. Yeah, right.
And by the way, like Joe Manchin, is he really going to run as an independent?
No, but they bring him on every couple of episodes to ask him. Of those people, that's the only one who gets regular airtime is Joe Manchin. Marianne Williamson, RFK has not been on any of these shows. Marianne Williamson was on Jonathan Karl interviewed her once pretty condescendingly. But obviously, here's the big guy, the big kahuna, the beloved, popular Dean Phillips.
Could pull votes from the left. And West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is flirting with an independent run and may leave the party.
No, he's flirting with it. Joe Manchin, my prediction with Joe Manchin is he's going to flirt with an independent run. And then to win over Joe Manchin, because Joe Manchin's so important and represents so many people, Democrats are going to say, listen, we have to bring Joe Manchin back into the fold, and therefore we're going to cave to all of his pro-corporate, pro-fossil fuel demands because we need Joe Manchin to win because we need that coalition. The same thing they always reject doing when it comes to progressive demands, where they say, progressives, you have to vote. You have to vote or else you're enabling fascism. We don't have to listen to you because you have nowhere else to go. But Joe Manchin, we need his vote. So yes, let's cave to all of his demands. I think that's pretty much that's where we're headed here. If I was making a prediction.
But you know what? If Joe Manchin is flirting with running, then maybe Dean Phillips is negging. He's negging us, like pretending not to be. He's playing hard to get. He's playing hard to get with running.
To do that. And now Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips is calling for a more competitive Democratic primary, saying voters don't want a coronation, they want a competition. Phillips, who is in his 3rd term representing suburban Minneapolis, let me tell you a little bit about him. He lost his father in Vietnam. After business school at the University of Minnesota, Mr. Phillips joined the family business, Phillips Distilling. He went on to help build Talenti Gelato into a top-selling gelato brand and also open.
That's impressive right there. I like the cut of his jib. Talenti Gelato.
I wonder if Nancy Pelosi tried to recruit him to Congress so she could have access to chocolate gelato. Because remember, she's really into chocolate ice cream. We learned that.
But this raises the question, why are we getting Dean Phillips's life bio? Like, why is Chuck going out of his way to make us so impressed with Dean Phillips? Is because, again, they want to create this image that Dean Phillips is the only face of the internal opposition to Biden, to make it seem as if
of course, right.
we actually have some diversity in the party, so we can ignore everybody else. Like, not only is he not reading the bio of, like, you know, Cornel West or Marianne Williamson or RFK Jr., he's dismissing them. They don't even count.
Right.
But Dean Phillips, let's hear about how he built a gelato company. Wow.
Yeah. And lost his father in the Vietnam War, too.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Penny's Coffee, a small business in the Twin Cities. And he is, like I said, in his third term. Phillips has denounced, by the way, the no labels attempt to fill a third-party ticket, but he has called for serious Democratic primary challengers to President Biden. And last week he met with Democratic donors in New York about the race, potentially entering it himself if no one else does. Congressman Phillips, welcome to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you, Chuck.
If I sum this up right, you are not interested in being a candidate for president technically yourself right now, or are you?
That's a fair statement.
Okay.
What I'm technically and legitimately doing is representing. I'm a representative, and I'm representing what I believe to be the majority of the country that wants to turn the page. Tired of the meanness and the fear-mongering of Donald Trump. I would like to see Joe Biden, a wonderful and remarkable man, pass the torch, cement this extraordinary legacy.
You don't want him to run for re-election?
I believe what's in the best interest of the country. And by the way, this is not how everybody thinks, but I do believe a majority wants to move on. I hear from way too many people. Now, the news was that I was meeting with donors. The fact is I listen to normal Americans every day and my own feelings. And
is this all about age?
No, this is about how people feel. By the way, it's not about what's real all the time. It's about how people feel. People want to turn the page. I think that's fair to say. That
was a nice little rhyme. It's not about what's real. It's about how people feel.
Yeah.
You know?
Really good pop song material.
I'd read a book based on that, like a self-help book. It's not about what's real. It's about how you feel.
Yeah.
Dean Phillips, self-help author. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's do it.
After you do your job marginalizing all actual opponents to Biden from within the party, become a self-help author. This is very, very exciting. Or, you know, what he could be doing too is paving the way for Gavin Newsom to step in.
Yeah.
Because there has been some talk of that.
Right.
Who knows what Dean Phillips is up to, but
who knows? I feel like, you know how Ben and Jerry's has like really like punish titles for their ice cream, like Cherry Garcia. We got to figure out some like Dean Phillips names for his gelato. So like, not the way you feel. It's not the, what is it? It's not about what's real. It's about the way you feel. So what could how could we turn that into an ice cream flavor? Real feel raspberry or something.
Okay, yeah, I'd buy that. That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
As a Democrat, I adore Joe Biden. He saved this country. He can cement his legacy. My real call to action right now is not about me.
Biden saved the country, everybody. If he saved the country, why do you want to replace him? Doesn't make sense.
Right.
He's
he saved it. Now it's time to torch pass. Strawberry Fields. Oh wait, someone wrote Strawberry Fields. That's great.
That's very good.
Or why not turn it into a musical campaign also? Strawberry Fields forever.
We're giving Dean Phillips way too much free consulting work here.
Right. It's true. Yeah. Media and consultant work. Yeah. Also Dean Phillips.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Is to ask the president to pass the torch. There is an extraordinary bench, of people ready to go, proximate,
who would you like to see in
positioned.
This race?
I would like to see a moderate governor, hopefully from the heartland, from one of the 4 states that Democrats will need.
So let's see, Gretchen Whitmer. You'd like to see her, or is it Tim Walz, your home state governor, Tony Evers? Help me out here.
You just said a few names I think would be great. Josh Shapiro. There are a number of people. J.B. Pritzker. Some people have asked me that I not use their names because of this institutional fear that it might impact you down the road. This is the time to meet the moment. And I'm doing something that I know it's unpopular as a Democrat, but I'm speaking truth. That's my job. My duty is to the people I represent, but also to represent the mass majority. And I want to say this about Democrats. It's really important. Joe Biden right now is down 7 points in the 4 swing states that will decide the next election. He has historically low approval numbers, Chuck. There are about 55% of Democrats would like to see an alternative. I can keep going down the list. The fact of the matter is
everything you're saying we've all heard in
right.
private as well. Why do you think it's all private? Why do you think this hand-wringing is only really gone public through you?
It's very simple. People are focused on self-preservation and not principle. There is no political reward in the United States right now for simply speaking the truth. Look at what happened to my Republican colleagues who dared.
I mean, hey, he's got a point there.
I know, he's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and what this all reflects is they're really not confident in Joe Biden.
Right.
And fair enough. Fair enough. That makes sense. Is that enough, Dean?
This guy's a headhunter for the presidency, wear pilgrim rights. It's true. And I just want to give some shout outs to people who have suggested really good ice cream flavors. And this is my favorite so far, Neolipolitan.
That's good. God, people come up with some great
people
stuff.
People are so good. Yeah.
Very, very good. Okay. Is that enough, Dean Phillips?
Let him just finish this one point about Republicans.
Do the right thing and support the Constitution. Support the Constitution, the only thing to which we're duty bound. Look at what happened to them. It is not good to get out of line. It's not good to raise your hand, stand up, shout a little bit at a time we need it more than ever. And I'm afraid that that's the culture in this institution here in Washington, D.C.
And so you believe the Hunter Biden news actually reinforces this even more, don't you?
I don't think the president is corrupt. I think the investigation will show that. But, and this is the important part, it's the image. It's what the news will do. We know what era we live in partisanship. It is the attachment to the president. Most people aren't watching Meet the Press every weekend.
Wouldn't this happen to any Democratic nominee?
It probably will, and it saddens me. And these are the people I'm trying to represent right now.
Well, again, not every Democratic nominee has a son who got a lucrative board seat in Ukraine after his government helped overthrow the government. Anyway, but I
like the way he says not everyone watches Meet the Press. That's right. Where they get the scales taken off their eyes. Not everyone watches this truth-telling program that is Meet the Press. So yeah,
and that's a major problem. We need more people watching. We need more eyeballs on Chuck.
More eyeballs on Chuck. Yeah. Another. What about vanilla scent? You know how Ben and Jerry's has those core flavors like chocolate core. What about this could be Dean Phillips flavor, vanilla center.
Oh, that's good.
That's
good. Really, really smart stuff. That's impressive.
Really great stuff here. Yeah.
All right. Well, there is a horrible national disaster happening in Hawaii with these horrible fires. And Joe Biden has responded to it by being on vacation and said he was asked about it. He said no comment. But Congressmember Jill Tokuda, she came on CBS's Face the Nation to discuss what's happening.
To Democratic Congresswoman Jill Tokuda. Lahaina is part of her district, and she joins us from Oahu this morning. Congresswoman, I am very sorry, as all of us are here, for the losses that you all are experiencing. You toured the area yesterday with FEMA, I understand. Do you know when the fires will be out, and where are we in this recovery?
Well, we walked through the streets of Lahaina yesterday, and I can tell you it was absolutely heartbreaking. It was shocking, surreal. We've heard all these words, but to actually walk those streets and to still see fires smoldering in the distance, to see cars literally melted into puddles that have hardened over on the road, X's on buildings and cars to say that it has been searched for signs of casualties or even life. We are not at a point where we can say a time frame in terms of when people would be allowed back into the area. But what I can tell is, I feel the anger and the angst that people want to go home. Everyone wants to go home. There are so many of our friends and family that never left. And that's what we have to remember. We are trying to respectfully make sure that every person unaccounted for right now, we are praying for their safety, that they're in shelters, but we know that too many are in buildings. Director Quiswal was talking about the cadaver dogs that have been brought on site that are going to make the difference. Yesterday, when we were touring there, we met the dogs, we met the handlers. We were talking about the gridding system, and one of my aides mentioned, because we heard the dogs barking loudly, and she said when she turned to look at them, they were sitting in front of a building and barking. And sadly, we know exactly what that means when a cadaver dog sits and barks towards a point. So every moment, every day right now, we have frontliners who are doing so much to bring all of our family and loved ones home.
And Congress.
Okay, then Wilson, we can skip forward to the next one. The next, this same clip, but later on in it. Or do you want me to? I can find it, I think. Hold on, it's when. Okay.
The cost of reconstruction will be close to
a radio, if you even could. Remember, things were out at that particular point. You would not know what the crisis was. You might think it's a tsunami, by the way, which is our first instinct.
Yeah.
You would run towards land, which in this case would be towards fire.
FEMA has estimated the cost of reconstruction will be close to $6 billion, but they've also said they are facing a $4 billion shortfall by the end of September. How do you make the case to your colleagues back here in Washington that with so many natural disasters and so much need in this country right now, that Hawaii needs to be the priority?
Just say Russia did it.
True.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, right. They were going to freeze the grids. Rachel Maddow predicted.
There we go. Yeah. Let's bring Rachel Maddow in to testify.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow warned that Russia was going to destroy the U.S. power grids and freeze Americans to death. So certainly if they can do that, they can also cause fires somehow, and just say Russia did it and we'll get the money. Otherwise, sorry, Hawaii.
Right.
You're probably on your own.
Yeah.
What a tragedy. What a horrible tragedy.
Yeah.
Should we move on to?
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to play her response and then
We were never expecting this disaster and tragedy. No one ever does. But you heard it from my constituents that have been on air. This is a national crisis. This is a national problem. I cannot tell you how many individuals we've talked to, we've met. They're not from Hawaii, but they have been severely impacted. We know at the end of the day, loss of life will take place, not just for Hawaii residents, but for individuals from across the country that were in this area. This is a national disaster we are facing. And one thing we have to remember, too, was this is rural America. Rural America is getting hit by these types of climate change chaoses every single day's disaster. Rural America, which is what Hawaii is, faces a crisis of also being able to get those first responders and support as fast as they need to be able to respond in these situations. So we have to make sure FEMA has the tools and the resources to be able to execute support back home at Hawaii. But quite frankly, this is going to be happening across the country, and they need the money to be able to respond to wherever disaster strikes.
And I know President Biden has asked for another $12 billion to replenish disaster relief funds. This is going to be a continued conversation.
So what is Joe Biden's response to all this?
Well, let's see. We have don't worry, guys. He's asking for more money. He's the president. So obviously his hands are tied. He can't give the money because he's, that's Ukraine's money. That's all the money that we need, I'm sure, is going to Ukraine. But let's watch this clip of Biden talking about, because this is a climate emergency, obviously, what we're experiencing, right? These fires are the result of climate change, so largely. So let's hear what Biden's doing about it.
Climate change, a code red for humanity. The World Health Organization said, Mr. President, you call climate change a code red for humanity. The World Health Organization said it will cause an additional 250,000 deaths a year starting in 2030. Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
I've already done that.
Breaking news, guys. We've already done that. Let's hear him follow up and explain what he means.
We've conserved more land. We've moved into, we've rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. We've passed a $368 billion climate control facility. We're moving. It is the existential threat to humanity.
So you've already declared that national emergency?
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
Practically speaking. Practically. I mean, he hasn't, none of the things that would come from a climate emergency in terms of the infrastructure, the funding, expertise, none of that has happened because he hasn't, literally speaking, declared a climate emergency, but practically he has.
It's like if there's an emergency and someone says, have you called 9/11? And you say, practically.
Right, I've practically called it. Right, yeah.
Practical.
Don't worry about it. I practically called 911. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I was in Hawaii in January and I was in Lahaina, which is this really amazing historical part of Maui. And it's like there's this famous banyan tree that's been decimated in the fire. And I remember my friend and I were going to a historical building, like a museum that used to be a missionary house. And we missed it by like a couple of minutes. And I was really upset. And I was like, okay, well, we'll come back because we have friends in Hawaii who live there who we stay with. and I'm sure that's been destroyed. And you know, they've now the number is 90 something people have died, but people are estimating that's probably in the thousands. So this is awful, and you know, people should be making the connection between climate change and this, and also the way that the big five oligarchs in Hawaii have devastated have devastated the state, Maui in particular. And there's all this, you know, indigenous knowledge and indigenous wisdom, as they call it, because these are people who were living there since the beginning of time, and they have a lot of like expertise in this, and the way that they've been turned into monocrops, though. Yeah.
Another connection I think should be made is how much money is going into the proxy war in Ukraine, while neglecting needs at home, such as Hawaii, among many other things. And Ukraine was not really featured much on the Sunday news shows this week because, of course, we have to talk about special counsels. That's the most important thing. But also because this widely hyped counteroffensive that Ukraine was encouraged to do by the U.S., even though the U.S. knew Ukraine didn't have the right training and equipment, is not going very well, predictably. As the Pentagon leaks predicted, as was obvious would happen, but we were all supposed to ignore. And so now there's already talk about the next phase. So there's an article in the Wall Street Journal that just came out saying the real big event is going to happen next spring. That's what we have to be ready for. And Fareed Zakaria of CNN brought on a think tanker to basically push the same message that really we're not sending enough weapons to Ukraine. They need more. And so here is some of that.
Of the Center for Now to discuss is Alina Polyakova, the president and CEO of the Center for European Policy Analysis. Well,
now what they never tell you when they bring on this, like these benign sounding think tanks, the Center for European Policy Analysis, okay, they're just policy analysts concerned with Europe. They don't tell you who funds them. So let me tell you quickly just who funds this think tank, because it's important. It includes Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, the National Endowment for Democracy, the NATO Public Diplomacy Division, the U.S. European Command, which is the military, the U.S. State Department. Anyway, so that's who we're actually hearing from right now, not from a neutral think tanker, because think tanks are never neutral.
Right.
Welcome, Alina. So tell us, if we are right that the counteroffensive is not going as well as people had thought, what is the central reason? Is there a central reason?
The expectations on the counteroffensive were, from the start, I think, unreasonably high. And there's really two main reasons for that. One, Ukraine has never had complete control over its airspace. And if you think about carrying out a land counteroffensive, which is, of course, what the Ukrainians are doing, while being bombarded from the air, constantly encountering mines, no U.S. military operation would be carried out in the same way without complete air superiority. So that's one significant.
That is true. And that was recognized as a major factor in Pentagon leaks as to why Ukraine's chances were modest at best. But yet, Ukraine was encouraged to carry out this offensive. And the question is why? The answer, I think, is obvious, because the U.S. doesn't care about Ukraine's defense. It cares about bleeding Russia. And so pushing Ukraine into this counteroffensive was another way to do that. That is the overriding concern. And that's why, and I've written about this, you've had stories in the New York Times and elsewhere saying that U.S. officials are frustrated with Ukraine because Ukraine's been taking steps to reduce casualties in their own ranks. And that means they're not pressing hard enough. So U.S. officials are frustrated that Ukraine is trying to avoid killing their own people, sacrificing their own people. And they need to sacrifice more because, again, the U.S. is using Ukraine here to bleed Russia. It's not trying to actually defend Ukraine. And all this was predicted a long time ago. It was in the Pentagon leaks. But we were all supposed to ignore that because our overriding concern is to serve the U.S. government agenda, not actually do what's in Ukraine's best interest. So her answer, though, is going to be, rather than should we try diplomacy for the first time really seriously since the U.S. and U.K. blocked a peace deal back in April 2022, another thing we can't acknowledge on corporate TV, her answer is going to be more weapons.
Challenge that is really slowing down the Ukrainians. And the second reason I think that's equally as important is that after many colossal blunders in terms of its tactics and operations, the Russians have now also adapted to a long drawn out conflict, and they are now in the position of defending territory, which in some ways is easier than taking back territory. And those are, I think, the two main reasons for why we are seeing the kind of on-the-ground dynamics that have disappointed some Western officials.
So that raises this very difficult question going forward, right? Which is that Russians are now defending, and they've often dug into these positions and they've put landmines in, and the Ukrainians are trying to attack. And traditional NATO doctrine would say you need what, a 3-to-1 advantage in manpower, maybe a 4-to-1 advantage to achieve any kind of victory. Is it possible for the Ukrainians to break through these Russian, they've got landmines, then they've got trenches, then they've got artillery behind the trenches?
Look, everything is really unknown in the fog of war, right? Certainly right now, it doesn't look like Ukraine is in an enviable position. They're also taking high casualties. Over the last year and a half or so, the Russian side has dug in. They have mined the areas between themselves and the Ukrainian advance very, very heavily. That is hurting the Ukrainians in huge ways. A lot of the weapons that the West provided earlier on in the war, tanks, for example, are being taken out by these mines at a higher number than I think many anticipated. And I think now is the moment to rethink our Western policy as well, because we weren't prepared for this kind of war. We were supplying Ukrainians with weapons to at least be able to defend themselves, but we weren't supplying them with the kind of weapons they need to be able to launch a proper counteroffensive, which first and foremost means high, long-range missile capabilities so they can disrupt Russia's supply lines behind the front lines. They are very limited in their ability to do that. So never say never, but I do think the outlook does not look positive for Ukraine over the next 3 to 4 months.
When you talk to Biden administration.
So basically, and her message goes on to be, we should send these advanced weapons that we haven't sent yet. And that's been the playbook so far. The U.S. initially says, no, we can't send these, and then they do. And it's just this endless drip feed on the escalatory ladder. Ending where? I don't know. Nuclear war, who knows? But that's the game these people want to play. So, yeah.
I want to leave us. Let's head out with this video of Biden responding to the Maui fires. I think we want to end on an inspiring note, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, let's and remember, he's on vacation. And if anyone's reminded, by the way, of Bush responding to Katrina, you're not wrong. Okay.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Nothing there.
So no comment when he's asked about the rising death toll in Maui.
Yeah, if you're just listening to this episode, Biden's literal words were no comment. He doesn't want to comment on Americans dying in a horrible fire.
Yeah.
Well, that about sums it up. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. usefulidiots.substack.com and usefulidiots.locals.com. And please like this stream and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.